jet setters, this is JetSetJose. Today we're going to explore how traveling during the pandemic is. We're on our way to LaGuardia Airport down in New York City. We're going to take a flight from LaGuardia to Atlanta, then from Atlanta to Colorado. Like, I know right now traveling is kind of confusing, so we're going to take a look at how it is and go over some of like the different rules that are in effect. Now, things change day by day, so by the time this video comes out, some of this information might be outdated. Just remember to check your sources, do your research, and stay safe, alright? Alright, so I just made it through security. Pretty simple, standard procedures. The only thing that's different right now, you just wear your mask over your face. When you show your ID and your ticket, you just gotta pull down your mask just to confirm who you are, you know? But besides that, yo, it's all business as usual. Alright, so we made it to Denver Airport. About to make my way out of here too. Make my way to the hotel. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's another day. Alright, perfect. So I'm here in my hotel here in Denver, and I just want to recap some of the things that I saw while I was at the airport. So I'm just going to get right into it. Alright, so when you fly out of LaGuardia, when you're going through security, one of the things you'll notice that's a little bit different from before is that there's spots on the ground. Those spots on the ground, they're for social distancing. It's just to like measure out like the guidelines as to how far apart you should be from each other. Another thing that's different, when you reach LaGuardia, face coverings are required as soon as you reach the terminal. So that means everything from once you reach curbside, walk inside to check-in, the whole nine, all the way up to the gate, you gotta wear a mask. And then also a lot of airlines are requiring that you wear a mask as well. So that's one thing. And then in LaGuardia, I flew out, it was a Monday evening. I think the total population inside that terminal where I was at was probably like 1/4 of what it was before COVID, like the usual rate. Another difference you'll notice at LaGuardia is that there's hand sanitizer stations located like every few yards. And I think that's a measure that should have been implemented years ago. You know, like too many people be touching stuff, they don't wash their hands. Hey, like at least, you know, hand sanitizer is a step in the right direction. It's real nice, real easy, very convenient. You just walk up to the station, put your hand underneath the dispenser automatically releases hand sanitizer for you. So one of the things that I found interesting is that right before you board your plane, right when you scan your ticket, there's gonna be an agent there with a thermometer. Right before you could even board the plane, they'll scan you to get your temperature. If your temperature is elevated, you will not be allowed to fly. So if you're not feeling well, you feel like you're feeling a little bit warm, rethink that flight, all right? It'll save you the headache once you get there. For all of my New York State residents, think about where you're going, all right? And where you're flying from, all right? So if on a return trip, you happen to pass by 22 different states, there's some rules, all right? If you stayed in that state for more than 24 hours, you will have to quarantine as soon as you land in New York. I know it's gonna put a damper on some of these travel plans, but yo, let's just be smart, all right? Now there are exceptions. If you're like an essential worker, like say you were a travel nurse and you were working at an assignment at a certain location and you're returning back to New York, you'll be fine. Another one is if you have a layover in a state that's less than 24 hours, you're fine. Don't worry, don't stress about it, all right? Book that flight. Then another thing that I want to say is if you're driving through a state and you stay there less than 24 hours and you don't stay there for like the night, anything like that, then you'll be fine too returning back home. And now that quarantine measure is in place for those 22 states. I'll probably find a link, put it down below. But the way New York State has determined which states require the quarantine is based on a 7-day running average of positive test rates. So if it's like an infection rate of 10 people per every 10,000 in the population, if it's above that, then you will have to quarantine. All right, now let's talk about some of the differences when you're actually up in the air. Once you're actually up in the plane, one of the things that I noticed is that the whole block in the middle seat, that doesn't exist. Like, my planes were full all the way from New York to Atlanta to Denver. It was packed. All right, there was no social distancing. I flew Frontier. I don't know if different airlines have different rule sets, but that was the case with Frontier. Another thing that you're gonna notice when you're flying is that there is no snack or beverage service at all when you're flying. The only thing you could get is a bottle of water, but they will charge you for that, and they will only come to you to get the bottle of water if you ask for it. All right, so is flying during COVID really that different from what it was before? Nah, not really. I mean, these are, little changes, minor inconveniences, if you want to think of it that way. But in the end, it's just to keep us safer. But the best thing to do is, try to, protect yourself. Wear your mask, like, use common sense, wash your hands, don't touch your face. Like, let's just be clean, be safe, protect each other, protect ourselves. Just be considerate, all right? One of the questions that people were asking me on my Instagram DMs is it safe to fly right now? See, that's really like, should you fly? That's your own personal choice. It depends on what risks you're willing to take, because right now, in the United States, you could basically fly anywhere within the country, and you could have the time of your life. But like, for us New Yorkers, if we're going to a certain state, then once we return, hey, there's a possibility you might have to quarantine. And also the rules are changing like day by day. Like, everything could be good one day, and then out of nowhere you might have to change plans on a dime, just because that's how quick the situation is evolving out here. Like, nothing is guaranteed, My flight out to Denver, literally, I picked it out the day before. It might be a little bit more pricier to do it that way, but there are a lot of good deals out there. But it depends on what your level of risk is. I'm not saying that you should fly right now, right? Because there's a whole bunch of warnings out there. Like, right now, pretty much, the government is saying only travel for essential purposes. All right, so it depends on what your level of risk is. If you feel comfortable with flying and you really need to fly, do it, go for it. But I would advise against it. Just follow your local laws, all right? And follow the laws of the place that you're going to go to. And then if you're traveling in between, know what those rules are as well, because no one is above the law. Just follow the law, all right? Good morning. Yes. So I made it into Denver last night. I flew from LaGuardia in New York City to Atlanta. That was a nice, good little nap I took right there. Then I went from Atlanta to Denver. Nice, simple flight. I was tired. I just slept through that whole flight too. Made it to my hotel. Fell right asleep, so I was able to get a good amount of rest, But now today, we're going from Denver. We're going to go all the way to Old Faithful in Wyoming. Now, that's quite a drive. It's about 9 hours. So I'm actually going to start getting ready to head out. I'm going to go pick up a car and do a nice little road trip. All right. So you thought that was the end of the video, but nah, it wasn't. Things aren't that simple, right? It wasn't going to be no happy ending towards the end of that video, right? We're talking about traveling during the pandemic when things change literally day by day, minute by minute, hour by the hour. All right, so my plan was originally to go out to the states of Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, just to see the beauty of those states, because no one really talks about traveling out there. Like Colorado, yes, but Montana, Wyoming, you don't really hear anybody say, oh, I'm gonna go on vacation to those states, and there's a lot of real nice beauty that's out there. So I just wanted to go out there, see it for myself, and showcase it to the rest of y'all. Now, when I had landed at Denver, it was already around like Monday 11:30 local time, and I wanted to rent a car, but of course, with COVID changing everything, all the car rental places were pretty much closed. I mean, there was only like one or two, but I wanted to get the best deal. So I was like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. I took like a $20 Uber, stayed at a local hotel, got a little bit of some rest, and then I was like, I'll try again in the morning. So I woke up at 4 a.m. This is now Tuesday morning that we're talking about, right? Woke up at 4 a.m. Hopped on my phone, took a look at what car rental places were open. I saw there were a few that were going to open at 6 a.m. local time. So I said, cool, woke up at 4, shower, brushed my teeth, got myself nice and dressed, ready to go for the day, ready to take on the day. Once I was ready, I checked out of the hotel. I got an Uber. It was about $16, $16. And then I went to the car rental place. So when I had arrived at the car rental place, everything was pretty much standard procedure, like always. The only exception is the employee there, they wore masks, they had gloves, the typical COVID stuff. So I had originally rented a small car, and I'm going to be out in Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, right? These are very mountainous states. So, of course, they always try to upsell you something, so I had a basic car. And then the lady behind the counter was like, oh, do you want to rent a Jeep? Do you want to rent like a 4Runner? I have, all these big cars. She's like, you're going to need them for the mountains. I was like, nah, it's cool. It's no big problem. I wanted to save up, fuel economy and all that. She's like, nah, really think it through and get the big car. So when in Rome, you do as the Romans, right? So I ended up renting one of the big cars out there. So right before I left the car rental place to pick up the car, I just had a little conversation with the lady and asked her, how's the business going? And she said she's been busy, like busier now than what she's been like in the last few months, even before COVID. So I was like, really, you've been busy? Like, why is that? Like, people are staying home and everything, So, we had a little conversation going back and forth, trying to come up with like, why is this the case right now? And then it hit me, I was like, people are social distancing, yeah, but if COVID is high in your state, what do you think people are doing? They're escaping their state, they're gonna go to a place that's least populated. So that's why when you look at a map right now, like in the beginning, COVID started where like there was high populations, right? All in the major cities of the United States. But now, if you look at a map where the cases are increasing, it's all in those rural states. Like, why? Because everyone is escaping those cities, going to smaller towns, going out into like the countryside, the mountains, So she said a lot of people recently have been going to Colorado to escape, COVID in their states, in their hometowns. So I left the car rental place and I started driving. This is out in Colorado. I'm driving, everything's all smooth, no problem. I'm on the highway. I look to my left. These big mountains, the biggest mountains I've seen in this country. I mean, they're not like the Andes mountains that I saw when I was out in Bogota, but these are like the tallest mountains I've ever seen while I've been in the United States, out in Colorado. So I take the highway and I make my way up into Wyoming. So we got to remember, this is Tuesday, July 22nd, 2020. All right, so at this point, I have been driving in Wyoming for a couple of hours. It was maybe like 10:30 in the morning local time, so 12:30 p.m. on the East Coast, New York time. So, I pulled over to the side of the road and I said, let me just catch up on a little bit of the news, see what's going on with the corona developments. And went on the internet, did a quick Google search, and what did I see? So those 22 states that New York had originally mandated a quarantine when you're traveling back from them, that list increased by 10 states, right? One state got taken off. So the total now was 31 states, right? So let's go back a little bit. My plan was to see Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. And my plan originally was to go up all the way to Bozeman, Montana for the night, spend the night there, you know, make that my little, you know, campsite for the night. But plans changed. One of the states that was added to that list was Montana. And I was literally like just a couple hours short of arriving into the state. So this is when quick thinking comes into place, right? Like if you're traveling during these pandemic times, best thing you could do is be adaptable. So I had a couple choices, right? I could either say, yo, I'm gonna go into Montana, risk it, try to find a way back to New York some other type of way, right? To avoid the quarantine. I'm not saying you guys should try to avoid the quarantine, right? If you do, yo, be responsible, right? I could have changed my plans. I could have just stayed in Wyoming that night and just explore Wyoming, Colorado. Give me an extra like 2-3 days to explore those states. Cool, right? But now another thing that you got to think about too, not just the laws, right? If you have a job, some of the jobs also have policies regarding traveling to other states. Some jobs, they're okay with you doing some travel. But in New York, some of these jobs say if a state is on that mandated quarantine list, like you can't come to work for 14 days. Now that sounds like a good idea, right? But right now I'm in between jobs, which is why I had time to travel out there. But I want to start work at a certain date, right? I can't miss out on income. So I decided the best thing to do was take a flight back. If you look at a map of the United States and other states that are on New York State's mandated quarantine list, literally every state that surrounds Colorado and Wyoming is on that list. I also took a look at the numbers for Colorado. Colorado is literally on the cusp of getting added to that mandated quarantine list. I was like, nah, man, you know, it's all about your personal risk and what you're okay with taking on. That's not a risk I'm willing to take. My income is pretty important, you know. That's how you put food on the table. So I said, nah, let me just abandon this trip for now. I'll come back at another time. So I decided to turn back. I was ready about like 9 hours into Wyoming. I turned the car back around and took my drive all the way back to Denver Airport again. So just because I turned the car around, that doesn't mean the trip was a waste. I mean, I was able to stop by like at a couple scenic areas, real nice. I stopped at a place called Split Rock. If you do a Google image of it in Wyoming, it's literally like 2 mountains and like a valley right in the middle. And back during the times when it was the gold rush, everyone was heading out west to, you know, in search of gold. That's where the pioneers would like use that as a guide point. And they will go right through the mountain and they know that they're on the right path, you know, because it's a lot easier to travel on flat prairie land than to go up mountains and then down the mountains again. So, you know, these people were smart back in the day. You know, I saw that. I saw a cactus. I saw the landscape change from red rocks, like how you would imagine Arizona to be. So red rocks, then I see like mountains and pine trees. You're driving up in the clouds. Then you come down a mountain and it's like desert for like an hour or two that you're driving. Like the landscape out there is very different from out here on the East Coast. So I enjoyed the scenery, you know. So I drove all the way back to Denver Airport. I returned the car at the car rental place. There was no issues. They ended up refunding a lot of my money because I was going to be out there for a couple of days. That's how long I rented the rental truck for. And you know, it was nice and simple. I hopped on the shuttle, went to the airport. Once I got to the airport, I started, you know, my Google flights, you know, checking out what's the cheapest, earliest available flight that I had to get back to New York. And the cheapest flight that I saw wasn't too bad. I think it was like about like $115 one way. But I had to do a stop, you know. And that's where things got a little bit tricky for me. So for me, I had to go from Denver to Orlando, and then somewhere in the tri-state area was where I was looking for a flight. I know the New York airport, so JFK and LaGuardia, like they give you a form that you have to fill out, and you turn that into the agents, and they'll follow up with you regarding your quarantine. I don't know if they show up at your house, but I know someone who did recently travel to like Las Vegas, and she said that they call her every single day. And at one point they're like, you know, you're coming to the to the end of the quarantine days, so they were like, we'll just send you text messages, you just reply back to us, you know. So I didn't know, you know, I didn't want to risk that coming back to New York. So I flew into the next closest airport, which is Newark, which is part of the whole tri-state area that's mandating these orders. But I thought to myself, are they going to enforce it? You know, like it's a whole different state where they enforce New York's rules. So I tested the theory out. So my flight from Denver to Orlando, Florida, that was a pretty packed flight. Like I was surprised. My flight left out, it was 12:30 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, and you would land in Orlando early morning. That was a packed flight. From there, it was from Florida, Orlando, Florida, to Newark, New Jersey. But that flight was, you know, maybe like a quarter of the way full. Like there wasn't really that many people. So like think about it, like New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, they're saying if you fly from any one of those states, that is now 31 on that list. If you fly from any one of those states, you would have to do a 14-day quarantine. So that's enough to scare anybody. Like, why do I want to go to a state, make me want to quarantine for 14 days, and my vacation is only for like a week or a couple of days? You pretty much end up wasting your entire vacation just by doing a 14-day quarantine. So I think that's what really deterred a lot of people from being on that flight. So, which is fine with me, you know, more social distancing. I mean, we're still in a pandemic. We can't ignore that fact, you know. So it's a little bit easier to socially distance on a plane. Not that there's much space, you know, much room to distance on, but at least you got a little bit more breathing room between people. So as soon as you board the plane in Florida, they gave you two forms. One is a travel advisory for the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and then they give you a form also to fill out if you're a New York State resident. So of course, you know, I filled it out, you know, that's fine, no problem. They ask for your name, your phone number, your address, email address, you know, and how long you plan on being in the state. Now on the back side of that, they also say, you know, if you're an essential worker, you're exempted from like the quarantine just because you're traveling like from Florida or from one of those 31 states, right? Florida right now is on the list. This information could all change. It's like literally it's a day-by-day thing, you know. So before you travel to New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, just do your research, because whatever I'm saying on this video, like literally by the time it's posted, all this could completely change, right? So hopped on the plane. It was a nice like 2.5 hour, 3 hour flight, no problem. And then I landed in Newark. So once I landed in Newark, right, I walked off the plane. I'm walking through the terminal, and right before you leave the terminal to go to baggage claim, there's like a security checkpoint, and I saw 2 officers there, and I'm just thinking to myself, oh man, I'm gonna have to turn in this paper. They're gonna tell me I have to quarantine. But nah, yo, everyone that was on that plane that came from Florida into New Jersey just walked right on by. Like there was no issues, no one stopped anybody, no one asked, oh, can I have your form? Nah, you just walk right out, you pick up your luggage, and then you're on your way. So I just want to reiterate before I get like a whole bunch of comments in the section saying, oh, like you're disobeying the law. Nah, it's none of that, right? I'm basically saying, yo, do your research, find out what you're comfortable. If you're okay with traveling, you want to take on that risk, just understand what you're getting yourself into, right? Like I said before, these rules, these regulations, they change day by day, just like I found out myself, right? I had everything all planned. I'm gonna go to Colorado, Wyoming, Montana. I'm gonna come back home, have like an amazing video like set up for you guys. I have a drone, get some nice drone shots, see the national parks. Like everything was gonna be great, you know? And then literally I was driving for a couple of hours, and I took a look at the alert on my phone, and things just, plans had to change. So you have to be adaptable, flexible when you're traveling during these pandemic times. So unfortunately, this video did turn out to be just like a conversation, talking about my experiences. That's not what my channel is going to be about. Like, I'm going to have like amazing drone shots, nice videos, some travel guides, where to eat, where to stay, what places to see, what to do, all in different areas, right? It's not just going to be international, it's not just going to be United States, it's literally going to be everywhere, right? So if you ever plan on doing some travel, just follow me, subscribe, like, comment, follow me on Instagram. It's at JetSetJose, JetSetJose. Real simple, right? Follow me here on YouTube as well. And here's hoping to a very lucrative, productive traveling career coming up. Take care.